Action. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Under the Helmet Podcast. Today is a very special day, as you can clearly see. We have face cam over here. Say something real quick.
Something.
Look at that. Look at that helmet. We're both under the helmet today, boys. It's going to be, and girls, whoever watches our show. Not discriminating. But anyway, so today is a special episode as we go under the helmet. Got to take that off, fix my hair. But today is a very special episode as we are talking our origin story. Every good hero and villain has one. So we're going to go into ours. Who's excited? You excited? All right. Well, let's get started. You want to go first?
Not entirely sure what all we should talk about.
All right. So I think first place we're going to start with is let's start with what was our very first fandom and like exposure.
Oh boy. First fandom. So despite being basement Beskar, I was the one who kind of had to get myself into Star Wars. Like my family wasn't none of my family is really huge on Star Wars, at least my household family, which as a result meant that we didn't have the Star Wars movies just lying around. So I kind of had to scrounge them up from other people. Family, friends. I was able to watch the original trilogy on VHS with my grandparents. I ended up watching them wildly out of the traditional watching order. I saw Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, then A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. So I watched them in like numerical order, which, depends who you are. Some people consider that sacrilege. Some people consider that the way to go. But that's how I had to end up watching them. And then I ended up watching Clone Wars later on.
I wouldn't consider that sacrilege. I think that's a very typical watch order for some people. I kind of started with, so my first was Star Wars, and I started so far back I can't even remember. Like it was before I was conscious as a person. So basically, when I was young, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents because my mom and dad would work, and my grandparents owed a bed and breakfast. So we moved to the town I grew up in to be close to my grandparents. And when I was a kid, I used to watch your typical little kid shows. But the one my grandparents will tell the story of, there was one day they just got tired of watching the Wiggles over and over and over again. So they decided, hey, we're going to do something about this. So they said, we're going to turn off the Wiggles and we're going to put on this movie called Star Wars. I think you're going to like it. And I didn't know any better. I was like 2 or 3. So I was like, okay. And then boom, just like that, years later, it's a problem. We've got lightsabers on my wall. Sitting on my desk is Darth Vader's TIE Fighter or TIE Advanced X1.
There you go.
You know it. Throughout the years, I've had all kinds of Legos and stuff like that. So I've pretty much grown up with Star Wars. Like on Friday nights, we would watch the Clone Wars on Cartoon Network when it came out. So it's safe to say that Star Wars, one of the many constants in my life has been Star Wars, like without a doubt. And growing up through the years, like what used to entertain me as a kid, like, the explosions and space battles and lightsaber duels. Now I, still entertained by the explosions, space battles, and lightsaber duels, but now it's also the philosophy and the ideas behind Star Wars and the mysticism almost. So yes, that was my very first fandom was Star Wars by far. And then do you want to talk about how you branch out into other fandoms? So started with Star Wars, both of us here. What was this second fandom you kind of branched out into?
Let's see. After watching Star Wars, I got hold of my first Harry Potter book at the ripe age of whenever I was able to read chapter books, which I was at a very heightened reading level, so I think that was like, I think I made it through the Harry Potter series in first grade. So
That's pretty awesome. When I was a kid, so I grew up in the American South, and so some people call that the Bible Belt. And what was interesting at my school about Harry Potter was you had to get a permission slip signed by your parents for Harry Potter. So it was like this big thing. It was like, oh, you're reading the Harry Potter book. You had to check them out from the school library. And the only way you could check them out was with a written note presented to the librarian by your parents saying like, hi, I'm so-and-so's parents. I approve of this child reading Harry Potter. So I had to go get that note signed by my parents, and then went in, gave the lady the note, sat down with the first Harry Potter book, and just struggled with it. It just was not my thing. I was never much of a big magic guy. I'm very much more science fiction. Although I've come around to magic with time. Like I've seen the movies, but as for the books, I never really got a chance to fully read them. My sister loves them, ironically. My sister loved the books and would read the books and then watch the movies. So that's kind of how I got into it. So I'm very casual Harry Potter.
you're not a sci-fi guy, but what do you think of Lord of the Rings?
So one of my other friends got really, really kind of pissy with me about this too, because I've never seen Lord of the Rings.
Really?
I have not seen any of those movies. I have seen bits and pieces, but I have never seen them in their entirety. I've heard they're amazing. One of my friends was convinced he was going to sit me down and we were going to watch them all together, and we just never got around to it. So I'm not opposed to Lord of the Rings, but I've never watched them.
I tell you what, when I finally get down there for some photo shoots, and given what I have coming in the mail, it's going to be soon, we're going to watch Lord of the Rings. It's going to be good.
I'm down for that. I'm definitely down for Lord of the Rings. I think the next fandom I really got into over the years, because when I was a kid, it was always like Star Wars was pretty much my main for everything. And then I slowly got into, I was also a very casual like Power Rangers fan. So that's like if TV was on, like SpongeBob, Power Rangers, stuff like that. So the next big fandom I got into before I even knew it was a thing was the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I slowly transitioned into a big Marvel fan. So what was the first Marvel movie you ever saw?
My first what?
What was the first Marvel movie you saw?
First Marvel movie I ever saw. Probably Iron Man. Iron Man was my first.
Nice. So I have a very unique story. I didn't start off with the MCU. Like I didn't even know that was a thing until like years later. I think it was 2011 maybe. But the first Marvel movie I ever saw was Captain America: The First Avenger. And I'll never forget this because I was in middle school and I was having some like, edgy middle school boy phase, and kind of losing some of the values that I had grown up with. And my dad kind of sat me down and said, hey, you need to watch this movie. It's about this guy. He's a noble guy. And I was like, okay, I'll sit down and I'll watch it. So I sat down and I watched it and just immediately fell in love with Steve Rogers, just the character and the universe and the story. So to my surprise, I was like, oh man, this movie was great. Cinematic universe wasn't a thing, or it was in such an infancy. It was just like, that's a thing that happens. Like what? So then to see, oh, there's this Avengers movie that just came out. And like I saw it on like TV one day and I was like, that's Captain America. This isn't his movie. This is like, oh no, this is the Avengers? Like what? So then I watched the Avengers and went back and rewatched Phase 1 whenever it came on TV. And then the Winter Soldier. So then with that, I've kind of kept up with the MCU throughout the years. So then I became more and more of a Marvel fan, to where if my friends have a question about Marvel or DC, they come to me. They ask me, hey, what's this? I'm like, oh yeah, it's this, that. And I'm like, how do you know that? I'm like, hours of being antisocial. Many, many hours spent being antisocial on the computer. Just learning about comics, useless knowledge. all up in this noggin.
While you were in school, I studied the comics.
Yes,
Well,
while you were out talking to women, I was learning how to why Captain America tried to eat his shield in issue number 452 of Amazing Comics number 5.
Oh my God, I've seen that one. Why?
It's such a funny image, and it doesn't make any sense with context. It's so much better out of context. So yeah, I was very much that kind of fan for a while. So I'm not as much anymore. I've kind of, just don't really have the time to keep up with it. But I know the basics. I'll watch the like Easter egg breakdown videos of like, so like when Hawkeye came out, I watched all those, and I was like, oh, okay, I know most of these, but still very cool.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fake comics fan. I actually have a couple really old Captain America comics that I got on vacation to Martha's Vineyard one year. We had this old like general store, and they actually had comic books in there from like I think the 50s. They might have been reprints. I don't know, but I absolutely loved them. The stories are just wild. The costumes are like bright and vibrant. There's like characters in it you've never even heard of. Like, when is the Paladin ever going to get in like live action? Come on, Kevin Feige, let's go. Live action Paladin. When? Do you even know who he is? No, you don't. He's a guy with a gun. Moving on.
We have swordsmen now.
We do have swordsmen. That was great. Honestly, I knew he wasn't a villain. I was just like, they're setting him up way too much to be a villain. Still, great show. Really enjoyed Hawkeye. I've enjoyed all the Marvel shows. And I think that's what's so great about it, is just because I kind of just have stopped following like the buzz around them. And I watch the episode before I get anybody else's opinions on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in with a completely blank slate. Like, I don't watch any theory videos. I try to avoid spoilers. Like, I try to go in blank. And that's like my current mindset. And it's amazing because I can actually just watch the show and enjoy the show for what it is and not have to worry about like, oh yeah, look, so-and-so called out the, blocky CGI there. Oh, that would have been cool to see in reality. Like, I had, when Mando season 2 was coming out, I had to work all day because I would watch it the night it came out with my parents. So I got, I think it was Bo-Katan spoiled whenever like she showed up. And I was pissed because I was like, man, I was pretty sure it was coming because like they were talking about finding the Mandalorian. It's like, oh, maybe Bo-Katan if she's dead or not dead. Because I honestly thought she was dead because I was like, Gideon doesn't just have the Darksaber. I'm like, oh, I did the math and I was like, she's probably dead. So waiting for the story of how they took the Darksaber from Bo-Katan.
I was going to say, we need more Gideon.
We do need more Gideon. We really do. He's such and Giancarlo Esposito is such a great actor. Like, he's so intimidating too. Like, he's such a cool dude, like in interviews and stuff. But I mean, he plays a mean villain. Like, he's gonna hurt somebody.
He's good.
He's really good. And then, all right. So what other franchises have you been into throughout the years?
Well, I've certainly gotten into the MCU myself. I say this having the Daily Bugle set over there. And
the big one?
Yeah, the big boy. I got the big boy.
All right. I'm so jealous because I've been out of Lego for a few years, so I haven't gotten any of the new sets, but I saw the Daily Bugle set and I almost got back into Lego just for that. Like, I've got most of mine in my parents' attic that I would just love to go up one day and like, if I had space for it, I would definitely have a Lego setup.
There you go.
Eventually.
I have space for it, but I still have the set. Like, every dresser or bookshelf that I have is just topped with Lego.
Yeah, my prized set out of all of mine was I had not the new Republic gunship, but this was I can't remember what year it was, but it was the second most recent Republic gunship. And that one was pretty awesome. So I had that for a couple of years that I really loved. And then of course the Millennium Falcon.
Yes.
This was This was the pre-Force Awakens one, so I don't remember the exact set number, but I absolutely loved that set. Like that set went everywhere with me. Like the amount of just amazing. Absolutely loved that set. Would love to get back into Lego. It's just such a huge, expensive hobby, and I'm just like, I gotta manage my funds.
No, I gotcha.
Too busy collecting helmets.
Oh,
Gotta stay on
yeah.
brand.
No, I definitely get that one.
But yeah, have you seen the UCS gunship?
Oh yes, I've seen it.
Oh, that thing is beautiful. So the UCS gunship, and then I'd love to get the UCS Millennium Falcon.
Funny
Friend,
you mentioned that.
you have it?
You bet I do.
Bro, you gotta show it.
It's back at my parents' place, but it took me just over 24 hours to build.
No way. So that Falcon, the one that I had, that one took me probably, I think, 12 hours to build. I was like, I think 13.
Oh yeah.
And I got it for Christmas one year, and I literally I didn't give two craps about anything else. Like I got it Christmas Day. Or no, Christmas. Did I open it Christmas Eve or Christmas Day? It was Christmas Eve. No, I opened it Christmas Day. And I literally, like, as soon as my family left, I literally was just like, okay, I'm gonna go finish this, because I had started like halfway through the day, and they like called me down for dinner, and they're like, hey, we're doing a dinner, and I'm just like, no, I'm in a zone. Like, I had all the parts like spread out on the floor, like I was going at it, like family members came up and were like, hey, I looked like a little gremlin. I was like, what? I'm doing something right now. Like, what you doing? I'm like, building the Millennium Falcon.
Mine.
Yeah, exactly. I was like Yoda with a little like cheese stick he had. Mine.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, my friends love my impressions.
My friends always love my one Yoda impression, except I never say like Yoda stuff with it.
Oh, me neither. I went through a phase where like I would just like sit around and just like randomly talk like Yoda for no apparent reason. And my friends would get so annoyed with it. They would get very frustrated of just nonstop.
Their favorite line that I do is, crank that soldier boy, I must.
Superman, that hole. Somebody's got to clip that and make it like a YouTube short or something like that. That's just golden. Golden comedy.
Oh, it's good.
But yeah, so as you guys saw by the opening video, I have become a pretty good DC fan with my Red Hood helmet. So you want to touch on your kind of DC introduction, and then I'll go from there.
It was Dick Grayson. I love Dick Grayson. Yeah, I love Dick Grayson.
Arguably the best to second best Robin.
Arguably the best Robin.
Arguably the best, but definitely at least the second best. Depends on what you're going for with like if who, and that's a debate we're gonna have one day is who is the best Robin and why.
Mm-hmm.
And we will look at all of them. I'll make another PowerPoint. But so I got into DC kind of late, because I was never a fan of the movies. I didn't watch the animated series, the DCAU growing up, really wasn't that big into DC. Like I knew the characters, like I knew Batman, I knew Superman, I knew Wonder Woman. But I got into DC starting with, ironically enough, the Arrowverse. So Arrow and the Flash were the two big ones for me, and then eventually Legends of Tomorrow. I didn't watch a lot of Black Lightning. I wasn't a fan of Supergirl, so I just kind of avoided it. Watched it when I had to understand like the crossovers, but never really was a big fan of that. But really enjoyed Arrow. I've watched that show in its entirety and started rewatching season 1 many a times. The Flash, I haven't kept up with it in recent years. I kind of stopped watching after I think season 5 or 6. I cannot remember, but season 5 or 6, I stopped watching. It's the one where well, I won't spoil anything, but I think it was season 5. And that was the last season I watched in full. Oh no, it was I stopped watching after Crisis on Infinite Earths. That's the one I stopped watching after. Just because I could never catch the episodes when they came out and was kind of busy with school and everything, so I couldn't really devote time out of my day to go, hey, I could write this essay or watch a 40-minute or no hour long because it was on the CW app with ads, and I was like, I don't want to deal with that. So kind of fell off on my Arrowverse, not gonna lie, but don't dislike it. So then I've started transitioning to DC and learning more about their characters and all of that. So in the end, I've really become a big fan of Superman. And then through following the comics on YouTube, ironically enough, I became a pretty big Red Hood fan, especially through the criminally underrated and not talked about enough, in my opinion, is Deceased, which is the story of how a anti-life equation virus breaks out on Earth and in the DC universe and starts turning people into zombies. There's a title called, it's Deceased Unkillables. And Red Hood is kind of the main character. It's got a bunch of anti-heroes. So it's got Red Hood, Deathstroke, and a lot of random villains. So the Cheetah, Solomon Grundy, Mirror Master, villains you wouldn't think that are your typical villains. And they end up protecting an orphanage of kids with Commissioner Gordon. And it's actually really good. And I think Cassandra Cain is there as well. But it's your more morally ambiguous heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And they are just, it's a great story. And it's a great story. It's one of my favorites. And it also jumps forward and it has Damian Wayne as Batman. It's got John Kent as Superman. I think Donna I think it's Donna Troy becomes Wonder Woman.
I'm not sure.
There's a lot that happens. So like a lot of the younger heroes become their versions, and then there's Wally West. He doesn't become, or not Wally West, Wallace West. He's still Kid Flash, but he's the last speedster around. He has reasons. But it's worth it. It's such a good read. I'd love to get the actual paper versions of it. And then you've got a lot of your magical heroes. You've got Dr. Fate. You've got Constantine. You've got Zatanna. So it takes a lot of heroes that don't really get a lot of recognition, and really puts them center stage. Within the first issue, large spoilers, but Batman, Nightwing, and Tim Drake are all dead. They get infected and die, basically. And part of the first issue is just seeing how all of the heroes slowly die off and become these infected, Martian Manhunter does. Also Green Arrow. My boy Green Arrow gets some props in that story.
Yeah.
Because so there's actually a good, a tiny bit of comedy in it, because you kind of have to, in a very dark story like that, have some comedy. But there's a scene where, and this is what got me interested in reading it, is Aquaman becomes infected and comes up riding this infected Kraken, and Green Arrow shoots Aquaman off of the Kraken. And he was a little salty at first, because part of the reason the League is alive at all is because of Batman's contingency plans for all the heroes. And Green Arrow's there's no contingency plan for me, and there's no, dude, you're Green Arrow, you're kind of trash. And he's I could be a Justice League level threat if I wanted to. And Dinah Lance is yeah, sure you are, buddy. And there's this, and after he shoots the infected Aquaman off the off the thing. He's like, I just shot a zombified Aquaman off the Kraken with 70-mile-per-hour winds, and like, and Batman says, I'm not a threat. Screw you, Batman. It's like just hilarious stuff. I used to be in the camp of, oh, Batman's overrated. Now I'm like, he's a cool character. I like him. He can be a bit overpowered at times, but as long as he's written well, he's not a bad character.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
But yeah, so all right, so let's go. Say top 5 characters just in general. Who are your top 5 favorite characters in any medium?
Oh, you can't do this to me, man.
I am doing this to you.
Okay.
All right. Let's start. So we'll say our 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and kind of explain why. So who's your number 5?
Oh, I can't do them in any order, man. That's asking too much.
Okay. Well, who's the first one you're gonna name?
Egon Spangler.
Egon Spangler from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, from Ghostbusters.
All right. I like that. My number 5 is gonna be, I'd say Red Hood. He's probably my number 5. Because he's got to be on the list. Too much of my personality and Paige is based off that character to not give some love.
I get you.
All right, who's your next one?
Number 2, Peter Parker.
Ironically, also mine.
There you go.
And honestly, and this might be one of my more controversial opinions, probably. MCU Peter is my favorite.
Oh, okay.
Which Peter Parker is your favorite? Live action. We'll just go live action.
The Amazing Spider-Man.
Andrew Garfield. He's gotten a lot of love since No Way Home, and honestly, I like all of the versions of the character.
Oh, absolutely.
But MCU Peter is my favorite simply because when his stories were coming out, I was at that kind of similar age of Homecoming Peter, and then when Far From Home came out, like Homecoming was all right and I liked it, but I wasn't like the biggest fan. Far From Home convinced me, and a lot of people don't like Far From Home. I thought Far From Home was great because it really showed him struggling with the expectations of everybody around him. And I just related to that, where he was just like, I just really want to be a normal kid. Like, I don't, I'm being entrusted with this great, responsibility and things that I don't want. And he was like, hey, I'm going to try to be a kid. And I thought that was huge. So I thought that was huge. So that's why he's my favorite. Looks like we're starting to run low on time. We got 10 minutes.
10 minutes. I have to speed run through these next ones. Otto Octavius.
Otto Octavius. Okay. Not a bad answer. My favorite is, I'm gonna say Obi-Wan Kenobi is my number 3.
Okay.
And again, I'm running out of room. Like, I have so many more characters I want to talk about.
No,
But all right, who's next?
Luke Skywalker.
Luke Skywalker is probably, I would say, he goes back and forth between my number 1 and number 2. Just because I love Luke Skywalker. I love the story of Luke Skywalker. He's my favorite Star Wars character. Yeah. Although he and Obi-Wan kind of fight for that top spot.
That'd be a good fight.
All right, who's your last pick?
Dick Grayson.
Nice. My last pick is Steve Rogers, Captain America.
There you go. He's close.
Absolutely. Well, he was so formative in like my years of high school, where like trying to emulate the morals and values that he kind of showed off. And I wasn't perfect. I was never perfect. Like, everybody wants to be a Steve Rogers, but nobody is, and that's the beautiful thing. And I think that's what I really love about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, is that it shows that, hey, nobody is Steve Rogers. Like, Steve Rogers is his own unique person. He's not perfect, but he's not trying to be perfect. Like, he's just trying to be the best version of himself that he can be. And I think that is the true message of, like, Captain America and how important that is.
Zemo said it well, but there has never been another Steve Rogers.
Exactly. And I think that, and honestly, there never should be. I think, and honestly, shout out to Chris Evans. He absolutely nailed the portrayal of that character. And it could have been very corny and very like, I'm going to be here for truth, justice, and the American way. But I mean, he did it in a way that was so sincere and so noble. I was like, dang, I like this. I really like this guy. So
I like this guy.
All right. Speed running. Looks like we got about 7 minutes to go. So let us conclude with this. Concluding thoughts. We are going to finish with, what is the biggest, what's a goal you have for this channel and this podcast? Like what do you want to get from this podcast?
I'm not gonna lie. I thought about pulling an Alfred Molina. Have you seen his interview where they're interviewing the villains?
Yeah, I have. He's like, I'm just in it for the money.
I'm just in it for the money, and all the fans are like, happy to pay the bills, Otto. No,
I started this podcast not looking for anything big. I don't think it will be anything big or anything huge, but I am in it mostly for the simple fact that I want to connect with more people. I want to connect with people, and I want to talk about the things that I love and the things that I enjoy. I think that's so important, and I think that if we build a community, great. If we have 2 watchers, wonderful.
Woo!
So
shout out to you people.
Exactly. Shout out to everybody that's seen our videos. That's leave a like. This YouTube time. Drop that like, comment, and subscribe, baby.
Here you go, baby.
So I just want to say thank you to everybody that's dropped a like, commented, and subscribed. And one more thing before we end this cast, I will be guest starring on Lightsaber Radio, who is a Star Wars podcast run by some friends of mine. We're going to be having one of their hosts on the show pretty soon, but yeah, so I'm going to be hosting Lightsaber Radio or a guest star on Lightsaber Radio this Saturday, which is January. If I can pull my calendar up real quick. January 15th, 2022. And their podcast is, I believe, they do it based off Central Time, but I'm on the East Coast, so I gotta do it off my time. Oh. Thanks, Instagram. I'm trying to find Lightsaber Radio page. Starting to stress. Sweat pouring. Hold on. Lightsaber Radio. Their live show is. Come on. They're not putting on their thing when time it comes out. Darn it, guys. They always post about it too, so it's not like it's I gotta find their Saturday episode thing. So they run off Central Standard Time. We're on the East Coast, so I'm dying over here. I'm choking right at the end. But yeah, so I'll just say this. Go ahead and check out their Instagram page at Lightsaber Radio. They're an amazing group of people. They're such a fun podcast. Even if I'm not on the show, I'm typically in the comments, just like cracking jokes most of the time. Star Wars can get very heated, so it's always good to have that bright of levity of just going, hey, Black chrysanthemum? You mean black croissant? And just stuff like that. I think it's funny to me. So I'm always in there chatting jokes and having a good old time. So check them out. Lightsaber Radio this Saturday. I believe it is 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. I will have to double check on that. I will make a post on our Instagram letting everybody know. And with that, have a great one. Stay safe.
I have one
And
thing that I want to do.
up face reveal.